To be doing something different on Sundays. We are back here next Sunday. See you then, 11 Eastern, with the latest buzz.
Is so bad in Mexico that federal troops are being used to help stop it. After reaching the highest homicide rate in decades, an unknown number of troops are being sent by the government to at least 4 states, including the popular tourist destination, Cancun. Well, officials reporting that more than 29,000 murders happened in 2017. The U.S. already issuing the highest level travel warning for areas in Mexico. And you can see why. Some terrifying moments. Look at this. Overnight, as a small plane makes an emergency landing on a busy California highway, even flying under an overpass. So the pilot and the passenger, who were heading from San Diego to Los Angeles, forced to find a gap in traffic when the plane had some engine trouble and they could not make it to the nearest airport. The emergency crews calling it a complete miracle that no one was injured. That's amazing, and a really good pilot. Well, President Trump is gearing up for his first State of the Union address tomorrow night, and where he's expected to tout our country's economic progress, I should say, while pledging to work with Democrats. But some on the left, they're still refusing to even show up. Griff Jenkins joins us now live from Washington, D.C. with the very latest. So a big night.
That's right. Good morning, Heather. Big week here in Washington. The president spent the weekend actually here at the White House working on this first State of the Union address. The theme will be building a safe, strong, and proud America. In the headline, according to White House officials, will be the economy. We got a little preview of it from the White House Legislative Director, Mark Short.
I think the president's going to talk about how America's back. He's going to talk about where we are today as far as growing an economy. He's going to talk about the fact that America is open for business. And the president's also going to make an appeal to Democrats, to make an appeal to say we need to rebuild our country, and to make an appeal that to do infrastructure, we need to do it in a bipartisan way.
In addition to jobs, economy, and infrastructure, the president will also address immigration, trade, and national security. We're told the president's aiming for a unifying speech that will speak beyond his base, and that will be important when it comes to the topic of immigration, with the White House releasing their immigration plan today, which offers a path to citizenship for 1.8 million dreamers, some of whom will be in the audience Tuesday night. But at least 7 Democrats have announced they are boycotting. You see them there. Maxine Waters actually going to give her own State of the Union address on BET, and another one of them, Congressman Meeks, explaining why he's skipping.
I cannot give this man who does not respect me the respect to be in that audience. Okay. I will not be there. At every opportunity, he has disrespected me and individuals who look like me. I cannot respect him.
And one Supreme Court Justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, will be absent as well, but that's due apparently to a previously scheduled event. It will be interesting to watch, Heather. I think everyone in the country wondering, will there be a moment where he really surprises us? Get your popcorn. We'll find out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe he will. Griff, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, well, he knows firsthand what it's like to face fierce partisan opposition, having governed during the Clinton administration. And Gingrich says that tomorrow's address will come from a president who promised to and is succeeding in draining the swamp.
Well, I think the different parts of the swamp are getting drained at a different rate. He is clearly the greatest deregulation president in history. The number of pages of regulation that they have ripped up exceed everything Reagan did in 8 solid years. It's an amazing achievement for his first year, and I think it's had a big effect on the economy. He clearly has begun to move on judges. You'd have to say that he has had more appeals court judges approved, 12 in 1 year, than any president in his first year in the history of the appeals court, going back to 1891. So you have to give him very high marks there. The tax cut moves power out of Washington in a huge way. So I would say I'd probably give him a 65 or 70% achievement rate in a very, very tough business. Remember, the city is trying to stop him every morning, and he continues to plow forward.
And President Trump's approval rating, it continues to rise as well. The latest Fox News poll, take a look, it has 45% of voters approving of the president's job performance. That is a huge bump up, 7 points since October. So we'll see if that continues to rise after his State of the Union address. Well, the time now is about 10 minutes after the top of the hour, and turning a blind eye, how one state is helping protect illegal immigrants by hiding them from ICE. And we're about to find out whether the Obama administration worked the system to target President Trump's campaign when the bombshell FISA memo is released. Our next guest was at the center of the IRS targeting scandal and says that no one should be surprised by what we're about to find out.
He had a long-time fear of being poisoned. One reason why he liked to eat at McDonald's.
Man, oh man, Hillary Clinton makes a cameo at the ultra-politicized Grammy Awards, and that's putting it lightly. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, the political punches aimed directly at President Trump.
I can throw a major fit when my latte is just how I like it.
And welcome back to Fox and Friends First. Washington State issuing a new emergency rule to help protect illegal immigrants. Protect them. Drivers will no longer have to provide their birthplace when applying for a license. Now, this move coming just weeks after the Seattle Times reported that the Department of Licensing was handing over personal information to ICE that could be used to arrest and deport illegal immigrants. But now ICE has a new tool that they say they can use to help track down illegal immigration. They've gained access to a nationwide licensing plate recognition database containing billions of records. This will allow agents to track people via their car movements over the past 5 years. The data is collected from cameras on police cars, bridges, and toll booths. So we'll see how that works out. Well, the White House is now calling for the release of the controversial FISA memo as Republicans call for another special counsel to investigate the claims of corruption inside.
Once the memo is released, I think that there's going to be calls for a special counsel, 2 sessions, from all these committee chairmen who are involved in it. And I think it's going to be hard for Sessions not to do that.
Well, joining me now is Tea Party Patriot CEO Jenny Beth Martin. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Heather.
So tell people at home your firsthand experience in terms of something like this.
Yeah, when I've heard the members of Congress say that they're shocked by what's happened and when they've read this FISA memo and its KGB-like tactics, I've thought this is exactly the way that I felt when the IRS was targeting groups with Tea Party and Patriots in their name and asking for the contents of people's prayers, books that they've read, who they've spoken to, who spoke at events. The list goes on and on and on. That's the kind of thing we came to expect from the Obama administration, whether it was from the Fast and Furious scandal, the IRS targeting that happened to groups like mine, the congressional exemption from Obamacare, or granting DACA status to people who entered this country illegally. That administration was lawless, and they had a flagrant disregard for the rule of law.
And not transparent. And that's one of the issues and one of the reasons that the Trump administration is saying that this memo should be released because of, being transparent.
Right, exactly. When the targeting was happening to us, nobody believed that it was happening until finally Lois Lerner admitted it. And then we began to get some of the facts about what was happening. We needed to see this memo. We paid for it. We deserve to see it so we can judge for ourselves exactly what happened. That requires transparency. And then we need to hold the people accountable if what we think is in this memo actually comes to be accurate and true.
Now, the House Intel Committee put this together, but Democrats are saying they want to release their own memo if, in fact, this is released. What do you think about the Democrats doing that?
Hey, go ahead and release your own memo. And then we still, again, the American taxpayers need to see what has happened, exactly what are the facts in this case. It appears from what we're hearing that what we're going to see from this memo is that the Clinton campaign paid for opposition research, which then paid for a former British intelligence officer, Christopher Steele, who then paid Russian operatives to give him information, and they used that information to get a FISA warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. It was politically motivated then. We need to see if that is actually what happened. And if it is, we need to get to the bottom of it and need to hold those accountable who committed these offenses.
What about the FBI's demand that they be allowed to see the memo so they can make sure that there's nothing that interferes with national security?
Well, of course, we don't want to do anything that would interfere with national security, but I can't imagine that the members of Congress would want to do anything that would put our nation's security at risk either. I think it is completely ironic that the FBI, who delayed and delayed and delayed, installed, giving Congress what they'd asked for repeatedly, now wants to see exactly what's in this memo and what it's about. It sounds like they just don't want the truth to come out. They don't want light shine on their organization, and we need to see what happened and how corrupt the FBI actually was during the Obama administration.
Either corrupt or not. Release the memo and let us make up our own mind based on what it has to say. Jenny Beth Martin, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We will have you back when we find out what happens with the memo.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Thanks. Well, now to this Fox News alert. New violence overnight after a weekend wave of terror in Afghanistan. The message that the Taliban is now sending directly to President Trump as our military pounds the region.
We remember that this country was built by dreamers.
He had a long-time fear of being poisoned.
Did you see this last night? The biggest stars in music using the Grammy stage to pull political punches. Carly Shimkus here with the most outrageous moments of the night. Good morning. Go back to the fire and fury part of the entire thing.
Yes.
I recall during the Obama administration, there were several books written about President Obama that were deemed false and not true and a bunch of rumors. Can you imagine if they did that to him?
Well, you know, of course, that would never happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, one of the biggest moments of the Grammys and one of the biggest books, most popular books of the year right now. If they wanted to create some sort of shock value during the Grammy Awards, they certainly did, especially with Hillary Clinton. Nobody expected her to be a part of the show.
Why not have people talking about the performances the next day versus political stunts like that? It's just crazy. Yeah. It's infuriating, actually. Thank you very much, Carly.
Thanks so much.
We want to know what you think. What did you think of the politically charged Grammys this year? Email us at friendsfirst@foxnews.com or tell us on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll try to read some of those later in the show. Well, the time now is about 26 minutes after the top of the hour. The video is terrifying. A little girl dragged into a car. Watch this as it happens, abducted in broad daylight, but she escaped. But now the new question for investigators, are there more victims?
I cannot give this man who does not respect me the respect to be in that audience. Okay. I will not be there.
Well, Democrats are trying to score some political points by skipping the president's State of the Union address, but the real audience is the American people. So what message does he need to send? We'll debate it up next. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. Breaking overnight for you, explosions and gunfire rocking a military base in Afghanistan, killing several soldiers. This, just the latest in a wave of terrorist attacks across the country. Kelly Wright joins us now live from Washington, D.C. with the message that the Taliban says they're sending. Good morning, Kelly.
Heather, good morning to you as well. These volatile attacks continue with ISIS and the Taliban vowing to carry out more. Today's attack, a military base. At least 11 soldiers killed, 16 wounded after a suicide bomber launched the attack. Then insurgents engaged in a gun battle with Afghan soldiers. 5 insurgents were killed. ISIS has taken responsibility for today's attack. The terror strike follows a bombing on Saturday where a Taliban member used an ambulance as a weapon to kill at least 103 people in Kabul. A Taliban spokesman claims the attacks are meant to send a clear message to President Trump, stating this: the Islamic Emirate has a clear message for Trump and his hand kissers. If you go ahead with a policy of aggression and speak from the barrel of a gun, do not expect Afghans to grow flowers in response. Well, in response to the Taliban's deadly attacks, President Trump tweeted, or actually issued a strong response, stating this in his statement: "This murderous attack renews our resolve and that of our Afghan partners. The Taliban's cruelty will not prevail. The United States is committed to a secure Afghanistan that is free from terrorists who would target Americans, our allies, and anyone who does not share their wicked ideology. Now, all countries should take decisive action against the Taliban and the terrorist infrastructure that supports them." This latest attack, by the way, Heather, shows an escalation of attacks on the capital of Afghanistan, and the Afghan people are now wondering if their security forces can protect them.
And we certainly should not forget about our troops in Afghanistan and all over the world. Thank you so much for joining us, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Well, the Trump administration is pushing Iran to permanently release an Iranian-American prisoner. 81-year-old Baquer Namazi is on temporary release from Iranian prison after being discharged from a hospital for some serious heart problems. Namazi is a retired UN official held prisoner since 2016 for what Iran calls cooperating with the country's enemies. His son has been held prisoner since 2015. They're serving 10-year sentences. Benjamin Netanyahu praising President Trump for his decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The Israeli Prime Minister telling CNN's Fareed Zakaria that it will open the door for peace in the region.
President Trump made history by recognizing history. He did a great service for peace, because peace can only be based on truth, on reality. And denying the simple fact that Israel's capital is Jerusalem pushes peace backward by creating an illusion, fantasy. Can't build peace on fantasy.
Well, the embassy is expected to be moved by the end of 2019. The president expected to use his first State of the Union address to declare that America is back, and he'll use the power of the pulpit to lay out his agenda for 2018. So what message does he need to send? Joining me now to debate is Republican strategist Chris Prudhomme and liberal analyst Kathy Areu. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we begin, let's take a look at the pillars of the State of the Union as we expect them. Jobs in the economy, infrastructure, immigration, trade, and national security. The president expected to hit on all 5 of those pillars. So, Chris, I'll start with you. What do you think is the most important thing for him to get across to Americans?
So I'll say kind of 1A, 1B, working together, unity, national security, I think would be the 2 things. It is important to bring America together as a nation, of course, and national security at the same time. We certainly are in a very politically divided nation, and it's time that everyone it kind of gets on the same track and is focused on moving the agenda forward and not focused on personal political issues. It's time to bring America together. And of course, national security, which is immensely important. No matter what people's beliefs are on any side of the aisle, it is important to have a nation with strong borders and obviously strong security, especially in today's society across the world.
Yeah, I think a message bringing people together also will be imperative. Kathy, what do you think?
Right. Most presidents use a State of the Union address to launch new programs, but I think he's going to use it to build confidence, probably act presidential, and he needs to reset his agenda. So we're probably going to hear a lot about dreamers and DACA, immigration, and he is probably going to brag about 3 things: the economy, the economy, the economy.
Well, and that's a valid point, the economy, because it's doing great. The U.S. stock market, massive gains heading in today's opening bell. The Dow was up 223 points on Friday. You can take a look at the numbers as the bell opens today. So that's a legitimate point, right, Chris, to talk about the economy and how it's impacted everyone, all facets of society.
Absolutely. It is a very valid point, and the truth of the matter is the economy is doing very well. I believe today, Southwest Airlines just announced that their profit is even more enhanced because of the tax reform. This has affected everyone, no matter who you are, big or small. And starting February, you'll be able to see it on your checks directly reflecting. This is something that he certainly can talk about. This is something that has encouraged numerous organizations and companies across America, to put more money in the hands of the people. That's what this is about, and he's done a phenomenal job. It was a great concept, and it was executed very, very well.
And regardless of what people like Nancy Pelosi have to say, Kathy, you know, $1,000 in somebody's pocket does make a difference. I want to get you to respond to this, though. Maxine Waters, amongst some others, skipping the State of the Union, but plans to respond to President Trump on BET. What do you think about that?
Right. That's so interesting she's going to do this, and she's one of his most fiery, feisty opponents, so it's going to be fascinating to see what she says. And his approval is at an all-time low, so Maxine Waters has a lot of momentum going into this. She has a lot of people probably that are going to agree with her, so I think many people are going to tune into BET and see this unconventional response to a State of the Union address.
Actually, in terms of poll numbers, we had a Fox News poll that we talked about just this morning, the latest poll that showed that his numbers are up 7% since October, a full 45%, the highest number so far. I think that he's doing a great job. Chris, you get the final word here.
Thank you. Look, this is the exact type of rhetoric that people are tired of. The fact that she is only doing this to appeal to her base, to obviously benefit the DNC, this is ridiculous. I mean, she should be at the State of the Union. If we want to talk about bringing America together, she should be there supporting, obviously, America First agenda, not going on BET. She should be there at the State of the Union discussing how we bring America together. This is how you divide America. It's time to bring America together and not bring it apart. All these members of Congress who are protesting and opposing, they're only doing it for their base and for their own agenda. This is not about a personal agenda. This is about the bringing America together. And that's what President Trump is doing.
I've said this before, you know, you have opposing sides, you have opposing viewpoints, but you listen to each other, and perhaps these folks should lead by example and at least sit there and listen. Chris and Kathy, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, schools across the country shutting down as the deadly flu outbreak reaches epidemic proportions. Dr. Nicole Saphier breaks down the early warning signs that everyone needs to know.
We don't need that type of rhetoric on either side, from Nancy, Paul Ryan, or anybody else.
And Democratic Senator Joe Manchin tells Nancy Pelosi to grow up and get on board with President Trump's wall, the friendly fire from the left. Welcome back. The flu outbreak, take a look at this, now shaking the nation as schools in 12 states are keeping their doors closed to prevent further spread of the deadly virus. So what do parents need to know to protect their children, and when should they keep their children home from school? Valid questions. Joining me now with the answer is Dr. Nicole Saphier. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Heather. Thanks for having me.
So it really is scary. I had a friend who died from the flu at the beginning of the month, or a couple weeks ago, in Ohio. So this is affecting people who are healthy, and it comes on very, very fast.
Yes, so this is absolutely one of the worst flu seasons on record. However, it's definitely not the worst. If you go back to the Spanish flu in 1918, significantly worse. But this does remind us of that, reminds us of the tragedies that can come from the flu. You can't just write off the flu being just the flu. And as you said, it comes on really fast. What we are seeing with this flu in particular, it's a different strain. It's H3N2. People are having the flu or flu-like symptoms for a few days. Some people actually have mistaken them for just a bad cold.
Right.
And then they get better, they go back to work, and then all of a sudden they're really sick, and that's when you're seeing people die. And that's because what's called a super infection, which means your immune system is down because it's been fighting off the flu. All of a sudden a bacterial infection takes over, and a lot of times it gets into the lungs.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly what happened to my friend, because she was trying to treat herself. She didn't know it was that bad from over-the-counter, medicine, and then like 38 hours later.
The far majority of people can treat themselves at home. However, you need to know the warning signs. You need to know when to seek medical attention.
So you're a parent and you're watching your child. What do you need to look for, and when should your child stay home?
Well, so as a mother of three, I'm on high alert constantly, as you can imagine. And the truth is, again, most children or most adults can stay home. The most the children that are we're most concerned about are less than 5 years old. However, it can affect any child at this point. And so what you look for are, think of a cold, but exaggerated. So high fevers, chills, shakes. You want to go see a doctor if you can't control the fever, if you can't keep food and liquids down.
And if you're very tired,
if they're very lethargic, tired, or they're just not normal. You know, it's not just they're sick and, you know, they want to watch more TV. If they don't seem right to you, it's better safe than sorry. Go see the doctor.
It's very scary for parents. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Saphier. Appreciate it. Good tips. Well, now let's go over to Adam Klotz, who is standing by in the studio to talk a little bit more about our first-degree weather forecast for this morning. Good morning.
Hey, good morning there. I've had a little bit of a cold, a bad cold. Doctor, don't go anywhere. I'm going to talk to you right after this weather hit. Here's what we're looking at, current temperatures across the country. It's still a spot where we're paying attention to temperatures a little bit warmer, but that is a cold front, and right along that frontal boundary, we are going to continue to see heavy rain for the next several hours. So early this Monday morning, if you live right across the southeast coast, that's where that heavy rain is going to continue to fall. Otherwise, across the country, you're looking at mostly clear conditions. But in the next couple of hours, we've seen it here for the last several days. This is another trouble area, the extreme northwest areas of rounds and rounds of showers. So, Heather, this is another spot we're paying very close attention to because they have a lot more rain still on the way.
All right. Thank you very much. Nice to have you with us, Adam Klotz, this morning. Thank you. Well, the time now is about 15 minutes until the top of the hour. Liberal college students going back to the future to pounce on the president's State of the Union address.
What was your reaction to everything that was said?
I didn't watch it because I couldn't bring myself to watch it.
Quite racist at the very least.
Just one problem. The speech is tomorrow. Well, the man behind this political experiment joins us live. Up next, there he is. Welcome back. President Trump set to give his first State of the Union address tomorrow night. So why are some NYU students slamming a speech that hasn't even happened? Listen.
They thought his immigration stance that he outlined last night was especially hateful.
Very offensive.
What do you think of that?
It's something that I wouldn't have expected to happen in, like, our lifetime.
People on social media were accusing him of basically using the State of the Union as a campaign event.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous.
The fact that he started a chant, he's big on those.
I think it reveals that he has the temperament of a 3-year-old.
Wow. Well, is the left determined to oppose President Trump no matter what? Here to discuss the man behind that video, campusreform.com correspondent Cabot Phillips. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me on.
So they're responding to a speech that hasn't even happened yet. Were you surprised?
I sadly was not surprised, given what we've seen on college campuses across the board. And so many conservatives have been accusing the left of just shutting down President Trump simply because he's conservative, simply because he's Donald Trump, before actually listening to what he has to say. And for people that pride themselves on being so open-minded and so tolerant, it was disappointing but not surprising to see that they've made up their mind based on rhetoric, based on preconceived ideas about Donald Trump and about the Republican Party, but not actually on facts.
And speaking of rhetoric, you could actually hear from just some of that sound. People seem to be just repeating the rhetoric that they hear other people say.
And you mentioned other people. Oftentimes those other people are professors, specifically on college campuses. We've covered across the board how in college classrooms there's only one ideology taught, and that's a liberal one. And students are now being raised to believe that they're only allowed to be a liberal. And anyone on the right has to be racist, they have to be bigoted, they have to be not caring about poor people, all of those things. And so it does add up to where college students have a negative connotation, a negative perception of conservatism, to where they hate it blindly without actually knowing what its politicians and what its principles are about.
Yeah, and this is the time of life when you're supposed to be getting both sides of issues so you can form your own opinion. And I was thinking of that last night when we were watching the Grammy Awards as well. So they're getting it from professors, also getting it from Hollywood.
There is an overwhelming pressure, not just from the classroom, but a social pressure where students feel that if they do anything that is remotely, positive towards conservatism, that they're going to be shut out and ostracized. And sadly, it's taking away from what college is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a marketplace of ideas where if anywhere in society you should be able to have a disagreement and have opposing views. It's college, but that's not what's happened anymore. And it's dangerous moving forward. We can laugh at this, but millennials, people my age, 18 to 29-year-olds, now the largest voting bloc in America. And for years to come, we're going to be heading to the polls, people in that age group with a warped perception of what actual policies are about for the Republican Party and the Democrat Party as well.
Yeah, last night the Grammys reading from Fire and Fury as if it was fact when it's already been disproven by people who are quoted in the book itself that say, I didn't say that. So people definitely getting a distorted view of what's true and what's not.
And Hillary Clinton making an appearance, showing up, reading that book and getting a huge cheer from the crowd. I think it shows how out of touch people in the elites are, this liberal elite part of Hollywood and society. And I think many conservatives are saying, good, Hillary, stay around as long as possible because you lost and you're just bringing that losing mentality to the Democrat Party. Stick around as long as you want because it's a losing message that you have and people don't trust you.
All right. Well, the State of the Union is tomorrow night, and we'll have you back on hopefully after that to see what people really have to say about the real speech and what happened.
Looking forward to it.
Cabot, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Well, the time now is about 10 minutes until the top of the hour, and fighting the war on drugs. With more drugs, how liberal lawmakers are planning to use pot to battle the opioid epidemic. And the serial stowaway at it again. We've told you about her. How in the world does this keep happening? Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. The FBI releasing some terrifying video. We told you about this suspect snatching this young girl right off the street in broad daylight. A surveillance video capturing the scene in a neighborhood near Chicago. The child was walking home from school last month when the man grabbed her and put her into his red Ford Explorer. The police say that he then assaulted her. Well, she got away and the suspect was later arrested. He faces life in prison, and the FBI is hoping other victims, if there are other victims, that they will come forward. The serial stowaway is at it again. You'll recognize her right there. Police arresting Marilyn Hartman in a privately owned plane area at O'Hare International Airport after she refused to leave. The 66-year-old was just arrested 2 weeks ago for sneaking onto a flight to London without a ticket. A judge ordering her to stay away from all Chicago airports. Hartman arrested multiple times, take a look over the years, for trying to board flights without a ticket. And she now faces criminal trespassing charges. One state wants to use marijuana as an exit drug. Lawmakers in New York pushing to expand the legal use of pot to help the opioid epidemic by allowing addicts to use it to deal with recovery-related symptoms like nausea and anxiety. Supporters argue that research shows that it's safer than alternative treatments like methadone. And Democratic Senator Joe Manchin slamming House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi over DACA. This after she claimed President Trump's immigration plan